Hey, good evening. This is Cindy Baker. I am a coach for entrepreneurs and other creative professionals. I help them leverage ADHD as their superpower so they can scale their businesses. And I am the creator and owner of the coaching program called the 3P Power Plan. Stands for positive, prepared, and productive. And so tonight's episode, I'm going to talk about how clutter can become overwhelming and what to do about it. And this is part one of a two-part series. So if you are watching live, if you could say hi in the chat. Um, the only one I am looking at right now is Facebook. I know this is streaming in some other places, but wherever you're watching, if you could just say hi and let me know where you're watching from. And if you're watching the replay, let me know that as well. And so we are going to talk about uh, clutter, even though that seems more like a home thing. A lot of people are working from home now, and so it becomes a home and a business thing. Um, and even if you're working in an office, your desk and your office can become cluttered. And ADHD clutter, it's that pile of mail at home that's calling to you. What is in there? Am I missing out on something? Is there a bill that's overdue? And as the pile grows, your stress level grows as well. So let me make sure I am streaming. Okay, I can see and hear myself, so hopefully you can too. Make sure you say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Hey, Kathy, Jamie, Knoxville, go Vols. That's where I went to school, Jamie. All right. I'm actually in Collierville, which is a suburb of Memphis in the other part of the state. So, anyway, I digress. I got excited because there's Vol. I'm in Memphis Tiger territory, and so I love to find other people who support the Vols. But when you have stacks of papers everywhere, you got stacks on your desk, it's like it's taunting you or something. What is all this stuff? Do I need it? What, am I forgetting something? And maybe you eventually move the papers to another space so you have more room to work. But guess what? The clutter is still there. It's just in another space. And the clutter, it's the closet, the basement, the garage, that's filled with so much stuff. It's screaming, there's no way you can figure all out what to do with all this. And you start to feel overwhelmed. And so those people who struggle with clutter in whatever form it comes in, those voices well. So uh, let me find out who's watching. How about you? Does any of that sound familiar? I'm assuming if you're watching this that you have an interest in dealing with your clutter. Um, and maybe you are ready to change some of these. Why can't I just get rid of the stuff I don't use, right? So, how many of you struggle with clutter? Let me know in the chat. And I keep looking at my phone because that's where I'm seeing the chat. But gaining an understanding of how your clutter builds up, that's the first step. And a lot of people wouldn't start there. But the thing is, if you don't start there, then all you'll do is clean it up and it starts all over again. The first step you can take in informing your choice of techniques to minimize that clutter is to figure out how it got like that. So let's start there. If you have a hard time getting rid of stuff, it's probably because of three main reasons. Okay. Now, there could be other reasons, but these are the kind of the overarching main ones. One is you think you might use it someday. Maybe it holds sentimental value, or maybe you spent a lot of money on it. And so you think you should keep it, even if you haven't used it in a really, really long time, because you spent so much money on it. It would be so wasteful. Then if you tend to be a compulsive shopper because of your ADHD impulsiveness, the piles just keep growing bigger and bigger. Um, and I know I've talked to many of you, you want to clear the clutter and you think, why can't I just make a decision? Um, I was talking to my coaching group last night, and I was reminding them that I have training in the membership portal for those in my coaching program about making decisions because it tends to be um, troublesome for people with ADHD sometimes. And above all, what can make it harder for ADHD adults to make a decision is having too many thoughts at once and difficulty processing them. So if you experience that when you're trying to figure out what to do with your stuff, you're going to stay stuck in this endless loop, you know. Um, like you say, should I get rid of some of this paper? And your brain says, but what if I need it later? Maybe I should just file it all away. How am I going to file it? Do I even have room in the filing cabinet? And if I don't, I'll have to find more space. Maybe I should file some of it and throw some of it out. How do I decide what to throw out? How do I decide what to file? How do I decide what filing folder to put it in? What if I throw away something and then I need it later? I know I'm going to totally regret it. And your brain is just spinning. And you're like, oh, I'll just figure this out later. It's too overwhelming, right? And when you're overwhelmed trying to figure out what to do with your clutter, it starts feeling like this game of pinball in your head. And so what I see people do is they either give up trying to do anything because they don't know what to do, or they kind of do the opposite. They just make an impulsive decision, just like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to throw it out. And just to quiet the noise in their head, but not making a decision or being impulsive, that doesn't really help you in the long run. Clutter can create confusion. Um, and we all have different tolerance levels for the amount of stuff in our environment, right? But too much clutter, whatever that means to you, it can create confusion, especially for ADHD adults. So think about how you feel in your physical environment right now, especially where you work. Does your space inspire and energize you, or does it deplete your energy? And if your space is too cluttered, you're going to have a hard time focusing your attention on what you want to do because there's just too much stuff. And our brains don't do well when there's too much stimuli. Does that make sense? Because it competes for your attention. And so you've got the stimuli overload, and you might, you either have a hard time deciding what to do, or you just jump from task to task without closing the loop. And so having too much clutter and not knowing what's in the piles can also lead you to worry, because you start worrying about what you may be forgetting to do, or you can't find something that you need. So you scan the piles, and in the back of your mind you've got this persistent worry and anxiety, and you wonder, what am I not taking care of that I should be? And it's always kind of eating away at you. And ultimately, the worry and the confusion caused by your clutter gets in the way of you being intentional and doing what's important, right? Clutter can steal your joy. Um, it can steal your money. So, what do you guys think? How am I doing so far? Anybody relating to this? Hi, Anita. Um, all right, Kathy is motivated now. Awesome, awesome. So there's a couple of ways that clutter steals from you. And the ways that clutter steals from you can also get in the way of spending your time on your important stuff. And of course, the most obvious way that clutter costs you is in fees for late bills, or maybe lost income from missed business opportunities. Um, I know there's probably other ways that it costs you, but They have done studies saying when people clear their clutter, they actually find money. Not like find it physically, but um, somehow it streamlines their life, and they are able to have more money on hand. So, besides money, your clutter also robs you of time that you really can't afford to lose, right? Think of the time that you spend every day looking for misplaced keys, papers, shoes, tools, you know, trying to muster enough self control to focus when you're too distracted by the clutter around you, spending time dealing with the fallout of situations that's due to your clutter and your lack of organization, like maybe not being ready for a meeting, not having all the things you need. Um, think about the time wasted when needing to correct mistakes that you make when you can't find something at the right time. Okay, so by now I'm sure you get my point. Clutter costs you. It costs you in a lot of ways. Um, so my big takeaway for you is I want you to just figure out what good enough looks like for you. That's the first step. The first step to dealing with your clutter is to answer the question, what do I want my space to look like when it's good enough and it works for me? Um, so without first answering this question, you may be tempted to have this idealized version of what you think your home or your office should look like according to somebody else's standards. And when you can't achieve that because it's just not right for you, you're going to feel bad about yourself and you're going to feel bad about your ability to be organized. But when your space works for you and it's good enough, here's how I would define that. It works for you and it's good enough for you if you can find what you need when you need it. Okay? So if you can't do that right now, then that needs to be one of your goals. It's good enough when you can have company over without too much trouble if that's something that you want to do. You can relax in your home without the stress caused by clutter. And when you're clear about that, like that question of what would my environment look like if it worked for me and it's good enough, um, then you're going to be clear about where you're headed in your efforts to organize your space. um, because the next steps to take to get rid of adult ADHD clutter, um, you want to ask yourself some questions. Why do I have so much clutter? And why can't I seem to get rid of it? Ask yourself some, you know, get real with yourself and ask yourself some questions. How are my ADHD symptoms possibly part of the problem? I think that's one of the benefits of my coaching program is that I help people see how their ADHD is affecting um, the way they live their life. And in order to change, they've got to understand how their brain is wired, and you got to be able to work with it. You have to ask yourself, how does this clutter impact my life? What um, what is this clutter doing to how I feel, and what I am able to do in my space? What would my space look like if it was good enough for me? You know. So that was part one. I want you to think about what would my space need to look like to work for me and be good enough. And next week I'm going to give you part two, and we're going to give you some, or say me. I am going to give you some steps to conquer your clutter. Um, I'm going to cover some specific strategies that you can use to deal with your clutter. Um, And if you are feeling overwhelmed by clutter, I'd highly encourage you to attend my next Chaos to Control challenge, because it is truly possible to get back control of your time. Um, and it's more about time management, but it's still something I think that would really help you. It's going to be May 13th and 14th. May 13th is a Saturday. It'll be at 10 a.m. So mark your calendars. March 14th is a Sunday. And I mean, not March, May 14th it'll be 6 p.m. because that is Mother's Day. So you can still do your Mother's Day brunch, and you can tell your family that for Mother's Day, you want to be undisturbed for that Sunday night so that you can participate in this challenge. It's only about no more than an hour at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Okay. So let me see what you guys are saying. Um, Not much. I know there's comments in different places. I'm only looking at one place. But if you do, I do loop back around and read those comments and answer questions. So if you have any questions, if you want to share what insights you have after you think about what would your space need to look like in order to be good enough for you and to work for you, not perfect, but just to work for you, I would be curious to hear that. So I hope this is motivating for your Monday motivation, and appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.